Ranking Member Blumenthal, the rest of this committee and the Seniors Committee, and looking around this committee, seeing people that I've worked with before on both sides of the aisle, and it's good to see you, and especially to the new members as well. I'm honored to be sitting here to be the nominee for the next Secretary of the VA. I'd like to thank my friend Kevin Kramer for that kind introduction. I appreciate his work, and I appreciate your work as well. He hit it perfectly. It's about the vet, and I thank him for that. I'd also like to thank President Trump for his nomination and for his willingness to have not only confidence in me, but also the veterans of this country. I'm privileged today, and I appreciate the chairman and ranking member mentioning my family, because I would not be here without them. My wife of 36 years is with me, Lisa. She's right here. I have my son, Copeland, and his wife, Holly. I have my son, Cameron, his fiancee, Maddie. And then on the end, we have the one that glues us all together, and that is Jordan. She is our daughter. But there's also one that probably is watching right now that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, and it's my 86-year-old father, who spent 31 years as a Georgia State Trooper. Dad, I'm here because of you and Mom, and I love you. You know, America is the greatest nation on earth, and it's the greatest nation on earth, I believe, because of the men and women who serve. It's the men and women who serve and are willing to take the step up to protect the freedoms that we hold so dear. And throughout my 2 decades of service, I've witnessed this firsthand. I've watched men and women go at their best, even when they didn't want to, and they served. And they stood up for our freedoms. And they earned the benefits of being in our great veteran system. And the VA is there for them. In addition to being a Navy veteran for a while, I've now been in the United States Air Force for over 23 years. I'm a colonel serving at the Warner Robins Air Force Base at Afric Command, and I've been able to watch over the years leadership. Leadership is about listening, but it's also about leading. It's also about taking the men and women that you serve with and making sure that you're putting their needs first. When you're in the military, it's about the mission. For me, if I'm confirmed by this body, the VA will be my mission. It will be the mission to take care of our veterans and to make sure they get the benefits that they deserve. I'm an Iraq War veteran. I understand burn pits because I slept next to one for many months. I understand this generation that went for time and time and again, deployment after deployment, in a different way than we'd seen many times before in our past wars and the needs that they have. But also being a veteran, I think I also bring something that is unique to this position almost since it became a cabinet position. I'll be the first member of this Hill, House or Senate, to serve if confirmed by this body, which I think brings a different perspective to my service here. Because over the years, we've all had our differences in this body, and Ranking Member, I appreciate you mentioning, yes, we have differences, but we can agree. Because I have worked across this aisle to pass major legislation. Thanks to President Trump and this body, we passed the First Step Act, giving real criminal justice reform with my partner Hakeem Jeffries in the House. Music Modernization Act, which Senator Kramer mentioned. Defend Trade Secrets Act with Chris Coons and many others. These are the kind of things that make big differences when you cross and you give good ideas. For me, it is about having respect for the members. It's about having respect for this committee. And that is what I believe this committee is one of the most bipartisan here. I have earned and worked bipartisanly to make things happen in this country. Because you know also, I believe that we also have a lot we're in common with on both sides of this committee's dais. I believe we also believe that there is timely access and care for our veterans, for every eligible person. I believe that we're actually supposed to reach out, and the Mission Act provides that template that we passed here, that I was a part of passing. The VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act, which passed, by the way, this body unanimously, that holds our veterans, workers, and the workers who touch our veterans to the highest standards possible. I will tell you right now, the veterans VA will not have a stronger fighter for the employees in the workforce than this secretary, if confirmed, and also one that will make sure that we're held accountable, because good work begots good work, and others need to be held accountable. We will do that to make sure that we get the best for our veterans. The PAC Act, which was mentioned by the ranking member, something that I think we're still developing and making sure everybody gets the treatment. Just passed the Elizabeth Dole Act, something we're going to have to look at next. I'm looking forward to. But as we look at this, I do bring one thing. It's going to require your help, and it's going to require our mission. I bring to you today 2 things that will be at the forefront of my service. These are my dog tags. They're a reminder, just like every other veteran who served, that we're part of a bigger unit. And I also bring this bracelet that was made for me by a young airman. She was keeping watch each night, and I'd go by and see her, and we'd talk. I was a flight line chaplain at Balad. And she had said one night, she said, I've got something for you. And she ran back into her guard chat and she came out with this. She said, you're always bringing us something and listening. She said, I want to give you something. Well, what she didn't know is now about 15 years later, if confirmed by this body, this bracelet will be sitting in the Secretary of the VA's office, reminding me every day of the men and women that we serve. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Congressman Collins, thank you for your testimony. We'll have a round of questions. I'll start and then ask a couple of questions and then yield to the ranking member. It would be unexpected if I didn't open my questioning of you in regard to the Mission Act. I was involved in the creation of the Choice Act. We then attempted to improve it, make it more certain with the Mission Act. And my views are highly framed by my days as a member of the House of Representatives, in which I represented a congressional district the size of the state of Illinois with no VA hospital. So I care about rural and the distance that those rural veterans face. So I want to ask, if confirmed, will you make certain that the letter and spirit of the Mission Act is followed by every employee in every VA facility, and that the veterans are aware of their rights to advocate for themselves and to receive care when they need it, where they want it?
Mr. Chairman, as we had I've been a few years off, I forget to push my button. We'll get it. As we spoke in your office, there's no greater asset, and really you've hit at the very issue of why the VA exists. The VA does not exist in and of itself. It exists for the veteran. It exists, and that is why over the past 10 to 15 years in this body, the Mission Act was passed, and the intent of that was to make sure that in the delivery of services to the veteran is first and foremost. And look, you have veteran services that are being delivered in our VA system as it has existed. We also, as you mentioned, Mr. Ranking Member, there are VA benefits that are doing through our caregiver and our community care program. At the end of the day, the veteran is getting taken care of. VA care is going to happen. VA care will be there. There'll always be the VA healthcare system for the veteran. But the way that we express that is just like we do in this body. There's different expressions of how we make it better. We don't do the same things 40 years ago that we still do today if we're still wanting to stay current with what's going on. And our newer veterans deserve every access to finding care where they can. Or in your case, if they have a long way to go, they need to find the care if they want to, but always have the VA as a backup. For me, the intent of the Mission Act at the end of the day was about how do we make veteran care available to the veteran who needs it and not have the battles over how they get it because they want to be able to have that choice. We're going to continue to do that, and following the intent of the Congress in which I passed, that was my intent as well.
And Representative, is that a commitment to in an answer to what I asked you?
Yes, it is. We're going to be following the Mission Act. We're going to have the intent. We're going to follow that up, and it's going to be day one understanding that that's why we're there and that nothing's going to hold that up.
And let me highlight that while I mentioned geography and the distance, there's lots of other concerns in veterans accessing care.
Yes.
And I would highlight the importance that the Mission Act can play with high-risk mental health and addiction issues. We do not have enough care in the VA or outside the VA, and we need to make certain that wherever that care comes from, it's available when it's needed. True?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think that is a key. And you're seeing this all across, and you just hit on something very close to my heart, and that is especially the mental health aspect of this. As you can see, and Jordan and I have talked about this a lot, Jordan has a physical disability. She can't walk. And people would look at Jordan and they would have immediate sympathy, but if someone was to come in and say, I'm having trouble thinking clearly or my brain's not working right, we tend to repulse. I want a condition in which the VA and our community caregivers are drawing near, because suicide prevention is one of our biggest issues, and we've got to be able to draw the best and brightest. This is an issue health-wide, not just in the VA, but also in our communities as well. So I want to make sure we're getting the opportunity, so as you just said, Mr. Chairman, that member who needs it can find it and find it quickly and efficiently.
Let me talk about, for a moment, transition to civilian life. One of the most dangerous circumstances in the well-being of a member of our military who is soon to become a veteran occurs at that point in transition. It is a time in which there is a sense of loss of belonging, of camaraderie, of mission, of purpose. It is a time in which suicide ideation is more prevalent. And we have a requirement that the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Defense cooperate in a program to properly assist military men and women as they depart active duty. I want to hear how much you value this process and, in fact, how much you value the requirements, because the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs have failed to appropriately and adequately implement that caregiving time and to provide the necessary transition support. It is hugely important. It certainly is important to the life of that service member. It's also important to our recruitment and retention of future members of the military. Comments?
Mr. Chairman, you've hit it perfectly. I mean, this is not just a taking care of our military, our veteran coming out from DOD and then transitioning to a VA care as they choose, but it's also, if you go back even further, to me, this is a recruiting issue. This is part of the whole life cycle of a veteran. And if you have good experiences in the DOD, they have bad experiences for some reason if they had a VA, or vice versa, you're having people who served then telling their children and others, I don't want you to serve. This, to me, is an all-encompassing issue that we've got to work on. And as someone, especially as you talked about earlier, transitioning becomes that time in which, for some, they don't have that grounding anymore. They need that connection. And we've not done a good job of connecting the dots. One of the things that should disturb all of us in this room today is the 17 number that is often used to 17 veterans who die by suicide. And when we understand that, here's what we have found, that over 40% of them had never connected with the VA. So, Mr. Chairman, you have my complete assurances that not only are we going to be a priority, it is going to be an extra priority for me, because I believe we can use all assets, not just DOD and VA, but state veterans associations as well. I'm willing to look at any way we can make the connection to make those transitions as easy as possible.